It's our second time starting. Paul's still counting down like he's on Wayne's World. And that's how we roll here on Abs at 50. We're here for a quick update, talk about my medical records, which would violate HIPAA if anybody else shared them. But I'm going to share them with you. That sounds fun, right?
Protected health information.
Yeah. Oh, it's not protected health information if I freely share it.
Correct.
In fact, my primary care physician said they don't think they would get up in front of the whole world and do shorts without their shirt on. So,
yeah, most physicians are.
Well, my physician is quite fit. So, well, technically, they are a physician's assistant, but well qualified to be my primary care provider. So,
yeah, PAs tend to be in better shape than I come for you.
Yeah, I shouldn't give it away, but they are in better shape than most people. They were also an exercise science major in college and also unfortunately got injured in a bicycling accident a few months ago. So working way back in shape. And some of that's the impetus to do some of these things too. I think there's lots of reasons we talked about why I do this. One is definitely aesthetics. One, I think for me right now, as we go through this journey, and we're going to talk about the hitch in the road, so to speak, but not a real hitch in the road. I guess we didn't plan the hitch in the road, but you sanctioned the hitch in the road, so to speak. But I'll just say it. I took 4 days off of the diet, 4 to 5 days off of the diet. Like 4.5 days. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah. And you haven't been tracking.
Yeah, and I haven't been tracking as much, but that's okay. I think when we say tracking, I haven't been measuring in the app. I definitely have been tracking, if that makes sense. Like I haven't been weighing tracking, but I've learned to eat. And so that makes a difference. But just call it a week. I won't even call it like 4.5 days. Let's say a week of not tracking and just making sure I stayed around the 2,800 calorie threshold, which is the basal metabolic rate, as opposed to staying at the 2,200 calorie, 18 to 2,200 calorie weight loss threshold, which I'm back to as of yesterday. So back and tracking and eating to get to that 18 to 2,200 calories. And the results of this change were I gained 1 pound. So I went up to 185.8 instead of 184.8, right? Right in there. So didn't gain or lose. And that should be expected if I was eating the calorie level right around my basal metabolic rate, right, Paul?
Yeah. I mean, generally, we don't expect you to eat that meat. It's your activity if it's also relative to general training regimen. It's not crazy.
No, I haven't changed the training regimen. If you look behind me in this video, there's way too many comic book things wandering around in the background, which could distract from training. But training has been pretty standard and normal. Like I haven't, dropped off per se. So I also had my annual physical, which I did much earlier this year. I did the annual physical to start last year or to start this whole project. And now I'm doing it earlier this year. And good news in my annual physical. Paul and I had both heard that it was a possibility that as your body is flushing fat out, your cholesterol might actually go up. That didn't happen. My cholesterol was way down to the point that my PCP thought it was really good, pointed it out on my record and said, this is fantastic. And the bad cholesterol, that's the HDL, right? I always mess them up.
That is how it's referred to your oats. See, like protein.
Yeah, was a little bit high, but far lower than it was before. And the LDL was down in range, and it wasn't before. So big change. I guess dropping 30 pounds probably could have a positive effect on your dropping almost 30 pounds probably would have a positive effect on your cholesterol in your body. So my blood is no longer pure steak and fats from ribeye steaks. It's now getting close to normal. even though I still eat a lot of ribeye steaks.
Yeah. I think that, I think if you were consuming the same amount of calories, or let's say you were doing crazy being vegan, you probably eat, lower. So I think that's especially good news that you start eating red meats and poultry. So I think that's excellent. Uh,
And I'll be continuing to eating chicken and red meat because I had one other thing show up on my panel. So we're going to get it tested later on, but my vitamin B12 may be low. And the symptoms are that there are some symptoms that are like tingling in your extremities. And I actually have felt that. And I had talked to Paul about it. We thought it was due to, and it probably was partly due to this, right? My right hand felt numb because a couple weeks ago, I flew back from Phoenix from a trip and we were stuck on the tarmac for like 2 hours. And being stuck on the tarmac for 2 hours with my arm sitting on the edge of the vibrating plane, Paul and I just assumed I'm old, I'm 50, and my elbow was shaken by that plane and was probably causing numbness in my hand, but it didn't go away. So it wasn't a grip strength problem. There was no a grip problem. It wasn't the typical numbness you think of with like nerve pain. So it was very weird. And that was one of the symptoms of the B12 deficiency. So we're thinking those things might be related.
yeah, I'm sure that plays a part to it. And also just travel, travel takes us so on.
Yeah. And I also, and one of the reasons we weren't tracking as much too, the last 3 weeks before this week, I was finally back at home so I could cook at home again and every day and do things. And so that's why we wrapped up kind of the not tracking piece. But I was traveling and then I had obligations outside of the house in Seattle. And then I had another set of work meetings in Seattle. So a couple of things I did do though. Paul and I did the travel eating episode before this, and I can kind of tell you how well I did on the trips. We mentioned the Phoenix already, but one strategy I have is when I go to Seattle for trips, driving up from Tacoma, if I end up staying in Seattle, I found a hotel. I'll even say their name. It's called The Level in South Lake Union, and it's apartment style housing that's cheaper than a lot of the other hotels in the area. A little bit more expensive than some of the others, but in there I get a full kitchenette, a full kitchen. I get an oven, stove, and a bedroom. So there happens to be a Whole Foods right down 2 blocks away from the Level. And even if I was eating lunches with groups or eating dinners with groups, I could walk down the Level and load up my refrigerator full of breakfast food. And that's exactly what I did. So unfortunately, as you might guess, the Level are the Paul, do you want to think what breakfast staple the Whole Foods in downtown Seattle, well, in South Lake Union in Seattle was out of? What breakfast staple would they be out of right now? They were out of eggs. So I didn't get to get any eggs, but I was able to go in and get some chicken sausages and some potatoes, and I got a couple apples and some carrots, and I just made myself up a little sausage and carrot and potato little stir fry in the morning and had that both mornings I was up there instead of eating out or going in. And it was tempting because, every meeting I went to had piles of bread products sitting there, yummy donuts and croissants and all sorts of yummy things. But I knew that that was going to be a temptation. So I made sure to cook myself breakfast in the hotel room before I went out and did that. Also, the great thing about Level is it has a completely full gym on the bottom floor. So I was able to get in full workouts at night, even if I couldn't get them in the morning. And that's also, I think, one of the things we were talking about with travel too is just social drinking. You're a lot less prone to social drinking. You might have one, but if you know you're going to go do a workout after you have dinner, you're much less prone to have if you're going to have a drink, it's going to be one, right? Like you're not going to have any more because you're going to go try to do a workout. And workouts, maybe I know there are some beasts that can go do workouts after several beers or several shots, but I am not one of them. So If I'm going to have a drink, it's going to be like one, and then a couple hours later, I'm going to be back in the gym working out. So that was a nice piece too, and I think I held up the spirit of what we planned for the traveling. So just wanted to share that piece with folks too. How are you feeling about the sidestep in the progress and then jumping back on the train?
It's fun. Yeah. You haven't made any real regressions. Um, I think it's important to self-identify when you're being more disciplined than others. For a long time, I've said I would like to bat like 800. And as you get older and as you get closer to a goal, you have to get more and more precise. But 8 out of my 10 choices are good choices. I think, in the main, I think they're pretty low. And so I think you're still going to have, the framework that you're working in. I don't think you went outside of that at all. But as we talked about when we first started this, it's more that you venture. So better results for more precision. It's really that simple. Um, you're gonna hit plateaus and life happens. You just gotta get right back into the groove of things. Gotta have short. Number one, you have to recognize when it's happening. People, I know that there are psychological phenomena go off the rails and let's see, just go crazy, right? Eating everything. And also with binge or something, I think you have to see kind of sociological guilt, personal guilt, see when people are eating drugs. It's hard to that. You just have to have self reassurance. It's just really easy to get back on bike. It's really easy to get back out there. Start getting back to your routine. And the thing about it too is when you really commit to whatever it is, let's see if there's just read it, right? Whatever it is, when you really commit, it really becomes a habit. You'll start to feel off. You'll start to feel it's like the opposite of eating junk food. If you're
Yeah.
eating junk food a lot, you kind of normalize to it. And when you start eating other things, like it feels different. But right, when you give up junk food, like say, growing up, I had McDonald's a lot. And now I McDonald's never, like on that McDonald's. I have, if I have it once a year or once every 6 months, like I don't eat it, feel terrible because my body's not processing. But if I ate McDonald's every single day, I would not only be used to it, but I'd probably feel better than when I'm eating something else because of the response my body grows to have an anticipation to it, right? Like it's hitting those, those dopamine reward centers grow to like them. But you can do the same training. Right? Like if you're training a same amount, you're going to get feedback where, and sometimes it peaks, especially if you're very out of shape. It's going to take some time for you to start really getting the positive feedback, which are getting you all the time. And that you detour through them. Man, I feel sluggish, I feel off. Like for me, specifically for jiu-jitsu, I have to take 2 weeks off. I start right. It's literally
Yes, you do.
like you would know. Like I take that much time off there. But for people who actually take time off from jiu-jitsu or work home, they talk about that time, right? It's like it becomes like itch, right? So you feel like this innate desire to go and do the thing. And I think you can build that, but maybe not to the same degree as there are other neurological benefits that you're getting. Jiu-jitsu, right? Doesn't necessarily come from all types of working out, but it can do a lot. Especially if you're on a team sport or you do something like basketball, right? You like play racquetball or like, it's a double effect. You have the community building, so you get that aspect of it. That is something interesting. So, and you have the actual They don't mean like they're just from the exercise. That's big. If we're to be anything as far as it from this podcast is to don't let it be in one of your lists, which is just the liable life recurrence where you did bad 1,000. The grades don't bad out. You're trying to be bad as consistently and be as progressive as you can.
Well, let's extend on that point too. I don't think it was what we originally planned to talk about, but let's move on to that a little bit too. What I didn't disclose during that time frame while I was traveling too, I had some incredibly stressful family situations hit, an incredibly stressful financial situation hit, and an incredibly stressful work situation hit all at the same time. So one of my choices was to maybe slack off on the measuring a little bit as I was getting through those things, but just making sure that I was eating right, properly. And I didn't go down a crazy rabbit hole of bad eating. I wasn't measuring, like you said, but I only had, when we were talking about the 4.5 days, I had like the 4 days where I had desserts and a couple, things I hadn't had in a long time, right? But like I had a giant donut, which I regretted immediately after eating because I, to Paul's point, like I couldn't go to sleep that night after that because I had all that sugar rushing through my system. So I think there are definitely some things like that where now I'm looking at that food going, why would I ever eat that? Which was good. I mean, that's a great feeling, right? You go on this journey and you want to start identifying if I'm going to go have a treat, what are things I would never want? I just don't want donuts anymore. I know that sounds crazy to folks, but at least the donut I had, I mean, it was a pretty crazy donut. It had like Oreo cookies on
It's
it.
one of the voodoo donuts from
Yeah. But even with that said, I just don't. I'm looking at donuts right now, and I'm like, nah, that's cool. There's some other food now. Dark chocolate, I will grab by the handfuls happily, and I will say one of the things that I think over the last few weeks maybe I wasn't monitoring as well. Because I did have a little bit of dark chocolate hanging out in the office or at home, and ate a little bit more than I had been, right, and maybe not weighing or paying attention to that as much as I should. So, a couple things like that. But I think the thing too, when you start getting comfortable with your body and the food, you're going to gravitate toward those things that make you feel good. And if the dark chocolate, in the big scheme of things, is a lot less damaging than a donut
yeah.
or a giant muffin.
And I think there is a fair amount of to be Brian Johnson. There's a fair amount of literature that shows that really high chocolate is some sort of heavy metal sort of is going to have a net positive effect. So both the high flammable concentration of particularly dark chocolate, especially where it's not sweet, added sugar. And so I think that has probably either a neutral or an positive effect as opposed to it's certainly not where you get the chronic spike of insulin that you're going to get interrupts and tapes and things of that nature. I think you're looking about you're entering into a phase of your life, whether you're really young or 30s or 50s or whatever age you're on, reducing the chronic spikes and surround is the best thing you can do for yourself to immediately start changing. It's just overloading the inclusive that you're having large amounts of spikes all the time throughout the day. That's it. We get through your body. So
One the scripts you tell yourself too, right? So I went to grab again, aspartame is not the greatest thing for you. Like we know that. But I was at work today and I wanted some water that had flavors. So I went and grabbed a Sprite Zero from the vending refrigerator and bought it and walked it out. And one of my colleagues, they had a bunch of free soda out for Employee Appreciation Day, which let's just laugh about that for 2 seconds. But yeah, it's Employee Appreciation Day. We gave you a bunch of really unhealthy food. Thanks. That's way a great way to appreciate me. The whole pizza party joke is real. But with that said, the person was just being kind, like, hey, you could have one of these free sodas here. Well, they were all sugar sodas. And I felt kind of like a jerk later, but I gave my normal statement back. Oh yeah, I haven't drank a sugary soda for a long time. And that's like, I forget who said this. You may remember, but somebody said this and it stuck with me years ago because we talked about it years ago. That's like drinking candy. And I'm
Yeah.
not going to drink candy. That's just a terrible way to get it into your system. So, I just don't drink sugary soda. And I have a script in my brain. Like the immediate script is that's drinking candy. You wouldn't do that. And, the more kind of scripts you can build into your brain too, like if you're offered a donut or you're offered something, like it's like, oh, well, I don't eat donuts because they spike my insulin and I'm going to feel terrible later, right? Like you can say those scripts to yourself. I don't eat this. Now, there are a couple of things that I will always eat and probably, but we've been able to tamper down on them. One thing that I really haven't, I'm not going to say I haven't wanted it, and we've supplemented with some like ice cream sandwiches or some little low calorie ice cream bars, like kept the ice cream very small, right? So when we were looking at, I'm a big ice cream eater, and we looked at ice cream that had less than 200 calories in a wrapped serving, right? So here's something we're not going to do while I'm on this journey. We are not going to give me a pint of Ben and Jerry's
Yeah.
unless I'm just going to
Along with
eat
it,
that for the entire day.
also known as a single serving.
Yeah, that is not a single serving, but it is 1,200 calories in a pint ish.
It's a single serving for Dan.
Oh, it is a single serving for Dan. It absolutely is. It's absolutely delicious. I love ice cream. And, you have to know those things too. So if you have a vice, dark chocolate, I actually did a bad job with that the last couple weeks because I kept dark chocolate next to me in my office desk, which is a terrible thing for me to do. I know that the dark chocolate should be somewhere else, and I can only get myself a little bit because I will say, like when I was stressed a little bit at work, I just reach right into that desk drawer and grab that, chomp, 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 because it's right there and it's so easy and it gives you that little pump that Paul was talking about. So I know for me, that's something I have to like get back to remembering not to have those things there. Just full stop, no. And I bought it so innocently too. I went to like Walgreens in the middle of the day looking for I was looking for windshield wiper fluid for my car walking around SLU. And then, of course, I walked by and the Dove little wrapped dark chocolate almond one and regular ones were like, buy one, get one free on sale. And I was like, oh, harmless. I'll get some dark chocolate, put it at my desk, share it with people. It'll be fine. Don't trick yourself. Just
It's
don't
about
buy
all
it.
to know itself to be true.
Yep. And I think that's one of the things too, is just I think I think we can kind of summarize this topic today as, hey, I took a sidestep for a couple weeks, not measuring. And then I did have some treats, but I didn't gain weight and I kept my eating within the range we needed to stay that way. And now I'm getting back on track. The other piece we shared today was like making sure that you're eating things that fit with what your goals are, and making sure that if something is a danger for you, don't put it next to you.
Yeah.
If your favorite thing is drinking Mexican Cokes, don't put a glass bottle Coca-Cola in your refrigerator. Like,
Yeah. Works like it.
if your favorite thing is a caramel macchiato with whipped cream and sugar and coffee, don't go to Starbucks. Just full stop. Like, you have to change your messaging, right? Like, your messaging has to become something
If
else.
you're prone to eating your entire cheesecake, you're more sitting. Cheese.
Look, cheesecake is delicious, and you should probably eat a cheesecake. It's high in protein, Paul.
That's all. That's all science protein.
Yep. So, yeah. And just know that. And then if you are going to have, and we semi-planned it out, right? I told you I was doing it, and you said, fine, we'll do that. But if you're going to have a dessert too, the donut was the one part that wasn't planned. So that was the extra day. But, when we planned it out, we just said, okay, we're going to have desserts for a couple of days. And I did. And I didn't go crazy. I had like one per day. Like this wasn't like we didn't go, we didn't go do a rock cheap meal, right? Like we didn't buy 2 pizzas,
Yes.
a pan of brownies. And
Yeah.
we used to do that like 10 years ago. Like we would have an epic cheat day. But that's just for both of us with you just went through a horrendous weight cut, right?
It was not, it was less than informative. That's for sure. It wasn't horrendous. It's not like I came close to this. It's just, it was not fun given that I had to actually try to consume for more weight record really ever allowed myself since that I ever passed. But because of just how limited the schedule was. Still working out and doing things that I was not doing. The velocity that I ended up doing, yeah, right. It's not sure about that.
And you
Needed.
weren't, and you stopped measuring too, right? During that work time.
I took a slightly different approach. I was doing mostly like keto. So I did more of the elimination diet than I was, which was working out fine. Wasn't so I was able to get down my 5 pounds just by chewing the bar I was eating.
But we do both know we should be doing both, even if we're doing an elimination diet, right? Like if we're tracking at least for me, like if I'm tracking the calories per day, it should definitely
The
be.
mantra is the same. My results. So keep tracking. So I am not student first.
Yep. But we're both consciously looking at it, and that's the piece that's important.
Yeah.
And so, and then last thing, if you are in a stressful time and maybe something's going to slip, I think the important thing, one, is to remember the journey that you're on. The one thing I feel really good about during the stressful time is I can't control family drama. I can't control most of the work drama. I can't control the financial systems of the world. And so I can't control those things. But I can control this. And that is a really good feeling, right? And I know that if I'm controlling this, I've seen the results on paper now. We're going to go get the vitamin B12 thing checked out, but that probably has nothing to do with this weight loss journey. And if it does, I'm going to work with the provider, figure it out, and figure out like what supplement or what diet change I need to make. But the other pieces of the health, the weight loss, the knee feeling better because I'm not putting as much pressure on it. Also went through a period the last couple of weeks where the knee kind of flexed out and didn't hurt. It hurt a lot. Didn't feel great, but I was still able to get out and do things. Go walk the dogs, get in here and do small kettlebell workouts, even on the days it hurt really bad. And just as a reminder to the listeners that may not know the whole history, I don't have an ACL in my left knee and have had many, many surgeries. So it is bound to just hurt from time to time. But the weight we've taken off allowed me to do things that I maybe wouldn't have done in the past when it was hurting that bad. So,
yeah, it's going to help your resiliency.
yep. So, all of those things, knowing we're moving through, that's what's keeping me moving on the journey. So, just summarizing that up, and then just remember we're at 185.8 right now on the journey down to 174. And if I get to 174, then we'll start talking about changing the diet limitations. Do I want to go further? But for now, everything's on track, and we'll keep moving in the right direction. Anything you want to end with on the summary?
You have to, in year out, works for your own. At the very same time, Shakespeare's person to your tobacco and self being true. So know what your triggers are.
Yep.
Especially when you get there, right? Even if you're just like you're zombie through, I don't even focus on what you're doing. But when you focus, you'll know. Right? If that's it's just a derived plea of ignorance. But when you focus, you know where your trigger areas are. And there's a couple of ways you can deal with it. Number one, you can find substitutes So you have readily available substitutes or something like that. Lows, let's less detrimental. And that might be like, I mean, all the different things we experiment here. Oh man, you remember the eating brownies?
Yeah.
There are some, and so try to have things that you need to make some brownies that are, you're like, man, I just can't live without brownies. Well, try to find things that use stevia and applesauce and, try to do it and consistently right. The idea of people, you can control the inputs. That's still going to affect, right? Like the quality of ingredients, how much sugar. It's there's so much added sugar that if you're making it yourself, then you're the one adding sugar. Like you get to determine how much sugar goes. So half things that are substitutes, and as damn certain two is if you have to add abstinence from certain things, figure out a way to sell that to yourself and to be able to sell it to other people. I think we should. I think society should be much more willing. I think maybe with stuff, it's worth the cheap. But I do that a lot. Lunches that I work at versus like, oh, you're not eating, huh? So I don't eat it. I just don't eat what you guys eat. I just console my food. Yeah, it's every Tuesday is Taco Tuesday. Every Thursdays don't have Thursday. Someone's got a birthday every month. That sort of like cake for some every single month. It's like, no, I eat birthday cake every single month. So if I eat birthday cake on my birthday once a year, that's not a big deal. I'm eating 2,000 calories less. Birthday cake, one out of every 4 weeks, that starts to add up. Those calories start to add up. So, abstaining from certain things is totally natural. These type of scenarios, you have to avoid those groups, like things that are not going to be able to account for. Or number three, you're talking about some average achievements. So or if you're really putting in really to be old, right? Start about saying you try about 800. What you can do, it's fucking stupid about what's psychologically you can stick to, diet you stick to something that's successful, just as the version that you stick to is starting to be on this successful. But there's a paradigm where people making notes throughout the week. Every single thing that you or workshops, I really want, whatever it is, I really want cookies and ice cream, and then pick on the day of rest. So this like back when I used to do like simple ketogenic diets, that weight limited, I don't know, glycation every couple of weeks or once a week. So if you don't like go crazy for like I'm gonna give myself 4 hours, eat forever, 4 hours. By the time you get to the 6, you're probably I want this and I want that. You're just not going to be. That's the thing. If you break it up, you have one of those treats every single day. At the end of the week, you had an extra 20,000 calories. But if you try to sit down and eat 20,000 calories, we're going to make yourself sick. You're like, yeah, regret every day you're this. And if you want to try to give yourself a cycle on a cheap day, don't make it the whole day. Just be like, I'm going to give myself here, whatever pizza, burgers, hurry, all that stuff. That's it. Or you write that on. That can be a way to do it. It betters. I think you're more likely to realize that I really don't want personally. Sorry. It's just nice. And I think you'll start to see how when you deny yourself something, you come to understand that's not really a loss, right? You have to eat that ice cream, pizza. You look at obviously a burger there. I don't want that burger. What's your snacey with it? You really eat that desire. It's serious time you ways to satiate yourself. Here, that's the idea. You're eating healthy. You're eating lots of protein, lots of vegetables. You're going to crave those other things less. And if you are your sleep patterns and things like that are also to get you where your cravings are. So if you're craving a lot of carbohydrates, It might not be that you actually carry in carbohydrates. It might be a bunch of hard reps and not the rest of it. The rest of your fitness, health, and well-being work. So I think that will show give themselves a break. Yeah, if they're not giving the pizza perfect help, you should experiment. If I just know the goal is to get right. And then it's the consistency over time. This is a journey that you've been on, so working out, focusing on things, being close 2 years ago. Even what we're at, you be consistently going here. Well, that's 10 years, and different variations. And so it's a continuing journey. The journey will continue. It has to. That's the whole thing. The journey has to continue. And health and well-being can be a constant rotation of their journey, just like we talked about. There's going to be a lot of things that you can't control, right? And this is something that always happens this way here. So it's true. It's going to continue to be that. It's never going to change, right? It's going to be different variations, shades of stress from work day, whether it's the world, politics, your neighbors, finances, relationships. It's always that is how life happens. You don't work to just get ahead. Make the goal, stick to that goal, keep working towards the end.
Yep. And yeah, I couldn't summarize it better. And I'm going to leave us on one funny note. I feel like we just promote Whole Foods too much on this podcast, but that's fine. I'll leave us on a funny note. One of the things I've really found too in this whole thing is I used to go to like a place where if they weighed something like frozen yogurt or like the Whole Foods bar, and that would stress me out because I thought it was so limiting. And my whole brain has flipped on that. Now, when you go to the Whole Foods hot bar, I'm looking and saying, okay, this is awesome because I get to weigh my food and I know exactly what I'm getting. So if I go there now, like Paul was talking about substitutes, it's like I know exactly how much I can eyeball that box and I know exactly how much rice and chicken tikka masala, right? That's what's there. And then a little bit of those, we used to call them garbanzo beans because I'm too American white person, but we now call those chickpeas, right? Because that's what they're called. And I was trying to remember the name. That's how old I am. God, 50. See, but I know exactly how much of those three things go in the box to get exactly to that 1 pound to hit that $13. But it's not a cost saving things or a limiting thing. I'm looking at that going, that's going to be a very healthy, nutritious lunch as a substitute, like Paul was saying, that I had the other day when I didn't have a meal prepped. And instead of going out and having something really greasy or something else, I went there and grabbed that. And keep on it, like Paul was saying. Don't get off the journey. You know the journey is there. So if you know those alternatives are there, utilize them. There's a restaurant that weighs the salad out and gives your chicken on it, use it. It's an easy way to continue what you're doing. And why not? And before I used to get so mad because I'm like, oh, I'm going to put all this food in here. And it's going to charge me $1 billion for weighing it. Now I'm like, no, that's a benefit. Now I'm looking at it going, and not only am I going to save money because I'm going to hit that $12 for lunch, which let me tell you, in South Lake Union in Seattle, hitting a $12, $13 lunch is a bargain. And then you're also going to restrict your calories intentionally and still have a good lunch. So everything Paul's saying about continuing the journey, do it, and you can actually get some fun benefits. And I guess that's our third commercial for Whole Foods on the podcast. So, just this one. So,
sponsor us.
Yeah, should sponsor us. Where you get stuff. All right. Well, we'll wrap this up. I hope you enjoyed this update and talking about the journey, the different ways you stay on it, and that it's okay to take a break as long as you don't go crazy. Don't eat the 20,000 calories in one day, like Paul said. And we'll see you next time. And I think by the time we see you next time, I should be sitting right. Let's just tell them right now. I should be sitting around 181, 180 pounds, right, Paul? Yep. So I better be there next time, right?
You're have to get after it.
All right. We'll do it. And we'll see you then. Bye, everyone.